Okay, hi Facebook people. First time we've done live. We're doing a live recording of the webcast, so you'll be able to watch us as well as hear us. So welcome everybody. This is quick informal introduction. If you've got any questions during the podcast, what we'll do is answer them at the end. So we won't stop the podcast, we're going to record it as it is live. But at the end of the podcast, if there's any questions that have come on via Facebook, we'll hopefully answer those for you. And then when we finish recording the podcast, we'll stay online a little bit longer and answer any questions if anybody has any questions. So quick informal introduction for the Facebook viewers before we go start recording the podcast. I'm John, who's one of the directors of Shepherd's Walk Limited, who are the parent company of GPS Training.
I'm Tom, I work in sales and distribution at Garmin.
I'm Andy, I look after the technical support in the office and the sales on the GPSs.
So it's the first time we've done this live Facebook, so fingers crossed it goes well. So I'm going to start recording this podcast. So I say we're going to just record it as if you weren't here, so please excuse us that we're not going to be looking at the camera, because we're looking at our crib sheets and also the laptop that's in front of us, which is recording the podcast. What we'll do, just to make people realise that, we'll try and run through the podcast as one entity. But if we do hit problems or there's issues and we mess up a story, which more than likely we will, what we'll tend to do is go back to the start of that and then we can edit it beforehand. But because you're live on Facebook, sadly you'll see all, well, positively you'll see all the mess ups we potentially make. So it's the second podcast that we're recorded, so again it's live, so that's the way it is. Are you ready, guys? Are you?
Yeah.
Very good. Set away the recording on the software on the computer. Hi everybody, and welcome to the second ever GPS Training podcast. So today for the podcast you've got myself, John, Andy and Tom. So I'm John, one of the directors of Shepherd's Walk, the parent company of GPS Training. Next to me is Tom, who's our guest today.
Hi.
Tom, where are you from?
I work for sales and distribution at Garmin in the UK.
So we're very honoured on this podcast to have Tom as our special guest. He's actually come up from the northwest of England up into the northeast of England. So thanks very much for coming. And as always, we've got Andy here, which is our top tech geek.
Hello.
So Andy works for GPS Training, and he's our top tech guy, which will be doing more of the technical queries during the podcast. Okay, just to make people aware, if you are listening to the podcast, we are actually live streaming on Facebook for the first time as well. So if you want to see what we all look like, go onto our Facebook page, which is gpstraining.co.uk, and you can see us. There'll be a record of us recording the podcast. So again, GPS Training is our Facebook page, and I say we're live streaming on there. And then if you are listening for the podcast, or you've seen it or you watch it on Facebook, don't forget you can download the podcast from iTunes, TuneIn, Blueberry, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or alternatively you can just go to our website, which is gpstraining.co.uk. And now on the bottom left of every page you'll see a link to our podcast. So that's just gone in place over the last month. So again, if you're not you don't have podcasts that you can download onto the phone or something, just go onto our website and you can listen to it from there. So in last month's podcast we asked for some feedback and any questions, so thanks very much for the people who have been in touch. So Max Ryan has been in touch. He's been on our one of our SatMap courses. Sorry about that, Tom from Garmin. So, and he thought we were he thought our podcast was really innovative. We're innovative a lot, he said, but we can but try, can't we? Alison Hume thought the podcast was a great resource. Thank you very much for that, Alison. It is very much appreciated. And Pete Martin wishes every success and thought the podcast was very informative and easy listening. So fingers crossed we continue on with those schemes. And Andrew Kennard is an avid podcast listener. He actually gave us some good links to other podcasts to listen to. So thank you for Andrew. I did waste the next 2 or 3 hours of my life listening to other podcasts. And he also gave us some a few little changes which he thought we could instigate, which I am going to instigate, Andrew. So thank you for those suggestions. And we'll take those on board. So again, if you are watching us on Facebook or downloading the podcast, if you have any thoughts, just get in touch. And we'll incorporate those into future podcasts. So without any further ado, let's get on with today's podcast. What we're looking at in the podcast this month, we're looking at reviewing the Garmin Fenix 5 multi-activity GPS watch, which I think was one of Andrew's suggestions from his feedback after the last podcast. So we're taking that on board, Andrew. We're going to also then look at Connect IQ apps, what these are, and what are the best apps. We're going to look at the best top-end Garmin GPS, and what else would we do with Tom sat next to us, who's a sales on Garmin. And then we've got our top tips, as normal, our SatMap and Garmin top tips. Our big debate for this month is button or touchscreen GPS units. And then finally, we'll look at the courses that we've got coming up over the coming month. So then, first thing we're going to look at is the Garmin, or we're going to discuss is the Garmin Fenix 5 Active multi-activity GPS watch. So the first question I'm going to ask to Tom is, what is a multi-activity GPS watch?
So, multi-activity watch from Garmin incorporates lots of different sports within it. So that'll be our fitness sports, so running, cycling, swimming, but also now we're incorporating outdoor and other sports, so walking, climbing, and gym use as well.
Very good. And you've had a good play with this, Andy, haven't you? You've had a very bit of cycling as well with it, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, as well as hiking and walking, I love sort of road cycling. And what really impressed me about the watch, it does turn your wrist into a car sat nav for your bike, you know. So for the road cycling, you're able to, you know, search for place names, search for, one of the features I like, search for a round route. You go somewhere you haven't been before, which I often do on my road bike. You can say I want to do 20 miles, 30 miles if I'm feeling really fit, 50 miles, and it'll give me a selection of routes. I select them, and on the screen the load, pick the one I want, and it's that turn-by-turn navigation you get on the watch. So what I mean by that is when you're navigating with it, you get arrows on the screen as you get to road junctions, you get a nice buzz on your wrist, and a tone noise to say, hey, there's a left-hand turn coming up, there's a right-hand turn coming up. So for the road cycling, I think a great product.
Very good. And it's the Fenix 5X that we've been looking at. The reason for that, it comes preloaded with this topo-active mapping. So what's the topo-active mapping, Andy?
So it's a colour digital map covering the whole of Europe, which the whole of Europe, Western and Eastern Europe on your wrist. It's a nice, clear, sharp map with it being a proper vector digital map. I at first thought, you know, because I'm so used to the handheld GPSs we sell and the size of the screen, is the screen going to be big enough to view the maps on? But with it being a digital map, and the fact you can zoom right in anyway and get really close in on the map and see clearly the route that you're following. And again, going back to the road cycling, the turn-by-turn arrows, I had no issue reading the maps, and I think it's just a great new feature to have a watch with maps that cover the whole of Europe on your wrist.
And it's got good clear menus on it, hasn't it? So the menus seem quite clear. It was easy to navigate around when you were using it for the first time.
Yeah, good sized buttons on the unit. I mean, me and Tom are actually both wearing the watches today, which if you listen to the podcast, you're not going to see them. But they're good sized buttons on the unit. And even as I'm cycling, pressing the buttons to move between the menus, I didn't find a problem. I found it quite easy. You know, good size watch on the wrist.
And one of the things Tom and Garmin have incorporated into this is the standard fitness products that we see on their fitness trackers, and so we've seen those incorporated into the watch as well as the navigational as well.
Yeah, so there's the usual road running modes and all the features that come with that from one of our top end Forerunner products. You've also got a trail running mode on there, which I love. I used it a lot for trail running, and there's the climb mode, which uses the barometer. So when you start climbing, it switches into a climbing mode and tells you how long you've been climbing for, how much ascent you've done on that climb, so you can really push yourself and see what you've been doing on that run. But you've also got your activity tracking, as you mentioned, so steps throughout the day, distance, sleep patterns, all of that stuff is all built into there as well.
It's got a heart rate monitor built in.
It has. You've all got heart rate monitor off the.
And that's on the back of the watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an optical heart rate sensor.
That's fantastic, isn't it? So in the past we used to have strap something around our waist for it, or around our chest, don't we? But now it's all incorporated.
Yeah, so it's all done off the back of the watch, so it can track your heart rate throughout the whole day, not just when you're doing your activity.
Brilliant. And we pair this with our smartphone, Andy. So what are the benefits of pairing the smartphone? Why are we doing this?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it being a multi-activity watch. So we talked about the navigational side of things and the fitness side of things, but it's actually a smartwatch as well. So those of you who, you know, you've got your phone with you, it might be in your rucksack or your pannier bag or your water pack, depending on what activity you're doing. Someone tries to get in touch with you, send you an alert, a message through your phone. Your phone's nice and safe in your rucksack, but you get those alerts on the screen of the unit. So that's one of the functions of having it paired with the phone. One of the things I really like, which Tom might be able to bring in a little bit more, is the Garmin Connect app that you put on your phone that pairs with the watch for syncing all this data. We all want to share everything now with the likes of Facebook and Strava and all those sort of things, and having this Garmin Connect app on your phone and syncing all that data when you've been out for a run or a mountain bike or a hike. I mean, Tom, you might have some more.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's a kind of a portal really for you to access all the information that the watch is recording. So you can go on there, it maps your activity that you've just done. You can see graphs of your elevation, your heart rate, your pace, all of it is on there for you to view and share through the other platforms. And on social media as well.
Yeah.
So with all this technology on your wrist, is it quite a bulky watch, or not really?
I haven't got a big wrist, to be honest. Again, when I brought the watch out of the box, I thought, it's going to be quite a heavy watch on my wrist. It's not at all. I hardly know it's there, to be honest. But you look at the size of it, but it's really comfortable on the wrist. I like the one we've been stocking is the one with the tough polymer strap, and it's a really comfortable strap on the wrist. So no, I actually feel for a big size watch, it feels comfortable on the wrist.
And looking onto satellites, is it quite quick? Are we using both the American and the Russian satellites, or are we just using one type of satellites with the watch?
So GPS and GLONASS.
Right,
so,
okay, fantastic.
US and Russian
So
satellites.
it's the same as what we have with the outdoor GPS units. So is it logging on just as quick with it, or a little bit slower because they've not got the antenna that we have on an outdoor GPS unit?
To be honest, probably a little bit slower than some of the big handheld units we do, but I don't want to use that word slow because it's still compared to units of past. You go outside, you're ready to start your activity. By the time it's been turned on for a couple of minutes, that's it. You're locked on and ready to go. So no, I'm quite happy with it.
And the big thing I think that you mentioned earlier on when we first started about is this turn-by-turn route about it buzzing as you reach the junctions. This is when you've been out cycling, isn't it?
Yeah, so on the cycling navigation, either picking somewhere to navigate to or using this round routing, you get the buzzing on your wrist and you get these big arrows on the screen. But what I've also been using the watch for is a little bit of mountain biking, where I actually planned a little route on the Garmin's Basecamp software to send to the unit. So this wasn't turn-by-turn routing, it was just me marking points that I was going to aim for on the watch. Worked really well. You don't get that same turn-by-turn arrows on the screen, but as I got close to the points that I'd marked on the map that I wanted to aim for at different junctions, you still got a little tone alert and a buzz if you got close enough to that point on the map on the watch.
So first impressions, very good or good, and what would you buy one yourself?
Me, for road cycling, I love it.
Right.
The hiking, I can see the benefits of, I suppose if you're doing those sort of more extreme climbing where you want your hands free, you don't want a handheld unit in your hand, I can see the benefits. But for me, I think more for the road cycling. And Tom, you've probably got some idea, the sort of activities that you do a few different activities.
I use it for like say walking, scrambling, my trail running and road running. I think the big advantage of the Phoenix watch is it does do a little bit of everything and does each of them reasonably well. So if you are that multi-using person, it's perfect. You can go and do everything with it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So to summarise, we really like the Phoenix 5X. I say it's the most expensive one in the Phoenix range, but we always choose the most expensive ones, don't we? If you want to know more, have a look at our website, which is gpstraining.co.uk. Click on reviews, and you see an article and videos where we review the Phoenix 5X. There's quite a bit of information there. There's a good review, and there's a number of videos as we review it. So that's the Phoenix 5X. The next thing we're going to look at in today's podcast is the Connect IQ apps. What are they and what are the best apps? So this might be the first time anybody's heard of these Connect IQ apps. So straight over to Tom, what are they? What units can we use them on? And tell us all about it.
So Connect IQ apps is part of the Connect app that me and Andy were just talking about before, which links to the Phoenix watch. So they're extras that can be downloaded to some of our Garmin products. So if it's one of our Phoenix watches, for example, it can be as simple as a watch face for your watch, or it can be a whole new app for the product. So you could add in sailing as a feature for the watch and go in and do that activity. So we can add features to our product as well.
How do we get these onto our watches and GPS units?
So where you go into the Connect App Store, which can be via the PC and Mac or via the app on your phone. You select the app that you want to add to your product, and then the next time that product syncs with the Connect IQ app, it automatically installs it onto the product for you.
As well as the watches, what other outdoor GPS units can we put these apps on?
Yeah, so it works on, like I say, our Phoenix range. It works on some of our Edge Cycle products, and on the outdoor side, the Oregon 700 series. It works with those.
So that's Oregon 700, 750 and 750T. And again, when on those profile pages at the bottom, you do have a little IQ app, and that's how you access them.
Yeah, that's how you can app that are installed, yeah.
And what cost is involved in these apps?
So there's no cost for any of the apps. They're all developed for free.
Brilliant. And go on, which is the best ones? Which are the best Phoenix ones? Which are the best Oregon ones that you think are available out there?
So my favourite Phoenix one at the moment, kind of outside of a new Gucci watch face, is one that's designed to store your emergency contact details on your watch. So with a press of a couple of buttons, somebody can get all your emergency contact details. For somebody that goes out mountain biking and running on my own out in the hills, it's good that you can somebody can get your emergency phone number and any allergies that you might have straight off. It's just another way of of ticking that box for emergency details.
And the outdoor GPS, so this Oregon 700 range, which are the best apps that you can?
So one of my favourites for that is when I go on my night walks, there's a Sky app which allows you to load this up on the Oregon, and then you can select which constellation or planet you want to look for, and it turns you around, so that should be there in the sky for you. So using the compass on the device to show you where Jupiter might be or a constellation in the sky.
Fantastic. And with all these being free, why wouldn't you download them? Especially if you bought a Phoenix watch from ourselves or anybody else, or you got an Oregon 700, have a little play around. There's a nice way to download. Because I know some of the apps actually appear in the data fields, don't they, on the trip computer? Is that right?
Yeah, there's extra data fields you can add. I've used the data fields on watches and the Oregon, so you might see a data field that's something different to what Garmin have already put on the unit. So it's worth just having a browse and seeing what's coming out. They get added all the time. They're always updating them. You see new ones literally every week sometimes, you know.
And they're free, aren't they? So why wouldn't you give it a go?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Connect IQ apps that have come from Garmin, so thank you very much for that. The next thing we're going to look at in the podcast today is the best top-end Garmin GPS. I say, what else could we review with Tom sat between myself and Andy here with his Garmin branded top on. So the units that we're looking at now, or we're going to put head-to-head, are GPS Map 64S, Oregon 700, 750, Montana 610, 680. When we're looking at these top-end GPS, we are looking at them bundled with full GB mapping, aren't we? I don't think anybody would buy a GPS at this price range without 1 to 50,000 or 1 to 25,000 map cards. So we're assuming they're all loaded up with a similar type of map cards. What are the main difference between the 64S, 700, 750 and Montana 610, 680? I'll pan that over to Andy because he can explain the difference between each of those units.
Yeah, so what we look at first is the 64S unit, which is Garmin's tried and tested, tough, rugged push button unit. So that's going to be the big difference between the other models we're going to look at. It's a push button unit designed for that all season use, for someone who wants to use it all the year round and keep their gloves on, because you've got button control rather than a touch screen. Slightly smaller screen than the other units, but it's having the button control. That's what you tend to go for when you're buying the 64S unit. Very popular unit that we sell to likes of the forestry guys, forestry workers, national park workers, working in all weathers, needing gloves on for their work as well. So that's the 64S.
Oregon 700, 750? On 752, must have been 752.
So you move up to the 700, 750s, touchscreen unit, tough Gorilla Glass screen, 3-inch screen, so you're getting a bigger screen from the 2.6-inch screen on the 64S. I think in this day and age, we're all used to using smartphones now, iPads, touchscreen. It's that faster moving around the screens, moving through menus, sunlight readable screen, quick and easy to access things. Lots of new features with the 700, 750, moving away from just the navigational side of things. Tom's mentioned about these IQ apps, because it's a GPS device now that we can add IQ apps to. We can pair these GPS devices with the Connect app on the phone to sync data from your walks and hikes and cycle rides. But the big thing you see when you turn on these new generation Oregon 700, 750 units is they're called multi-activity units. You turn on the unit and you get prompted with hike. Go back to, I mentioned about doing a lot more cycling at the moment. You've got cycle, geocache, all these preset profiles that allow you to make the units very individual. Quicker than doing that on something like a Map 64, which I see more as a walker and hikers unit.
Brilliant. And then the Montana 610, 680, just a bigger unit altogether, bigger screen?
Bigger screen, so it's a 4-inch screen for someone who wants that big screen. Now, I talked about all weather use. You can actually, with the Montana, it doesn't have the tougher Gorilla Glass of the Oregon 700, but the screen it's a resistive glass. That means you can't get away with using your gloves. We have a lot of trail riders on motorbikes who buy the Montana due to the fact it's got that bigger screen and keep their gloves on when they're on the motorbike. A lot of the features look very similar to what I would class as the standard sort of walking unit like the 64S. You don't have all these multi-activity screens that you can quickly swipe to. There's no reason why you can't use it for different activities, but we sell a lot of this unit it's actually the trail riders is probably one of the most popular markets for the Montana. Big motorbike mount available for the back of the unit.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that Montana has a slightly different battery on it, doesn't it? It has a lithium battery in it compared to the traditional AA we get on other Garmin.
Yeah, so the other two units, the Oregons and the Map 64s, you just put 2 AA batteries in. Obviously you can choose different batteries to go in there. The Montana, the nice thing is it comes with Garmin's own LiPo battery in the back of the unit that can charge in the unit. You can't, which gives really good life. You can't take that battery out and just replace it with 3 AA's, but it does come with that battery in the unit.
So then, if we put all head to head, what are the main differences? When would you go for one over the other? And I don't know, I'll bring you in there, Tom. I don't know, if you were given those 3 units, which one would you go for, and why would that be?
I'm really torn at this point between 2 models, so I'm going to sit on the fence. But 64S has been my go-to for a long, long time. I wear gloves a lot, and I did a lot of Scottish Munro work, bagging, that kind of thing. So going for that unit that's got the buttons, that's easy to use with big, thick gloves on in particular as well. Also, the GPS Map 64 is so rugged. You can clip it on the outside of your rucksack. My rucksack can be shut down all day. It's, you know, a bomb-proof unit. But the new Oregon system and that multi-activity, and like I say, more and more people are doing more activities now. My Oregon can go for a walk with me. I can go geocaching. I can stick it on the front of my mountain bike, and everything's there ready to go at the touch of a button. So I am now leaning more and more towards the Oregon multi-activity.
Andy, which one would you go for?
Me, straight away, I've loved using my new Oregon over the last year, and I'm using it for walking, hiking, cycling. I take my little girl out geocaching with it. Now, all these other units, you can do these things with them, but it just makes it so much quicker that you just swipe the screen from turning it on to say, oh, I'm geocaching today, I'm cycling, I want that turn-by-turn routing on the roads, I'm hiking. It's a mid-sized unit, so it's not too bulky to carry, but at the same time, you have that nice size screen.
And when you're talking about geocaching, people hopefully know geocaching like a treasure hunt with GPS units. Big thing with the Oregon 700, 750 range is we can do live geocaching with that. So we can sync it with a Connect app on our smartphone, Android or iPhone. And then instead of having to download the caches and transfer them over via USB cable, we can actually just do it live, can't we, Andy? And that's a massive...
Yeah, I mean, that's a feature we didn't mention about pairing with the phone. So with the Oregon 700, 750, any of you are into this electronic treasure hunting, which is great fun with the kids, adults, gets everyone out and about, live geocaching by syncing with your phone's a great feature as well.
Fantastic. So we're a bit torn there, kind of, but I think we're kind of all pushing towards the. I firmly would
ask you, John.
Yeah, well, I'm an Oregon 700, 750. I'm an Oregon 750 user. I like that multi-activity. I love the connectivity of a smartphone because I enjoy burying my smartphone in the bottom of my rucksack and then cycling. I was just actually. Tom doesn't know this, he sat next to me. I was cycling around Kiel the other day when he phoned me on a Friday, and I saw on my handlebars it was Tom ringing me. I didn't stop, I just left to go to answer machine and carried on enjoying my cycle ride. Where if it had been somebody, if it had been my mother phoning, I would have stopped and answered that call. So I think that's really nice, because I'm just getting into the spirit thing, doing a bit of mountain biking, and then I don't want to stop. I'll just carry on because I know who it is. And again, you get your notifications off your apps and things on it. And I really like that. I think it's a great feature. So personally, I think I would go for the Oregon 700. So I think we're kind of there. Oregon 700, 750, Winter Walkers 64S, as Tom said, good proven units, isn't it? So that's our look at the best top-end Garmin GPS unit. Next thing we're going to look at in the podcast today is top tips, both sat, map and Garmin's. This is a regular feature that we're bringing in. So straight over to Andy for his Garmin top tip of this month.
Brilliant. All of the units, Garmin units we've talked about, nice feature of them all, you can record a track of where you've walked that you can then review back and play back in the Basecamp software, or if you've got one of the units that syncs with the app, you can look at that track. Now, I often get asked by customers when they're navigating with the GPS, and I'll agree with customers, I think this is a great feature. It's not just seeing where you're going on a screen that helps you get your bearings and where you are, it's seeing where you've been, seeing what's behind you. Now, when you're walking with a Garmin GPS, you get this little trail being left behind you when you start the track recording. Now, the default colour when you buy your Garmin GPS for this little track that's left behind you is quite a pale blue colour, and I often get asked, can you change that colour so you can just see that brighter colour being left behind you? You can change the colour. So the way we do that, it's nice and simple. In the touchscreen units, you go into the bottom menu where you've got all your icons. So like from the Oregon 700s, you press and release your on-off button to go to the bottom menus. And the Montanas, you touch the little V at the bottom of the home page to go to the bottom menus. And you'll see a menu called Track Manager. You go into Track Manager, you select Current Track, and you'll see that colour clearly listed with the pale blue. You can touch on it and change the colour. If you're using one of the push button units, like the Map 64S or one of the small eTrex 2030s with a joystick, you can still go into your main menus, find track manager, current track, and there's an option that simply says edit colour, and you just select that and you can make it a different colour. So you can see a little bit more clearly where you've been, which I do think helps with navigation as well.
So that's the top tip for the Garmin, is changing the track colours. The track is a breadcrumb trail that GPS leaves behind us when we're out walking or cycling. Over to sat maps. So what's your sat map top tip for this month?
Often get asked with the sat map units, maps not loading. It's just one of those queries I get on a regular basis. The sat maps come with high resolution maps. When you first turn your sat map unit on, they can take a little while to boot up on the high resolution maps. They are a high resolution map, that's why you get that slight delay. But I often get calls from customers saying, right, I've let my unit boot up. The new Active 20 is a lot quicker booting up with these high res maps, but I'm still not seeing the Ordnance Survey map on the map screen of the GPS. What the sat map unit does, it remembers the last place that you were zoomed in at. So if you've been on a walk and for whatever reason you finish the walk and you zoom right out on the map page just to see a much wider scale of where you are, when you next turn that unit on and it all boots up and it's went through the process, you get a screen that comes up to tell you what map you've got in your unit. You go to the map page, it's not there. And you have a little symbol at the top of a sat map unit in the very top right hand corner that normally looks like three grey conical, I would say three grey wine glasses. Shows you what I do on a weekend. But in that top right of the screen, and customers will ring and say, it's not there, I can't see it, my maps aren't loading. It is as simple as just, you zoomed out too far.
Right.
If you've bought a map set that has, the 1 to 25, 1 to 50, and the 1 to 10 scale, which SatMap do on one map card, it'll only load that map if you're zoomed in at that scale.
Right. So
it's just remembering, give the unit time to boot up for the maps to fully load, can take a couple of minutes from turn on, and remember when you're on the map page, zoom right into a scale of at least 1 to 50 to start getting your maps to load.
Fantastic. And that's the same with the Active 12, Active 20, or is there any difference?
All of the units is the same, except you'll notice on the newer Active 20, which with it having a much faster processor, the actual initial boot up process is a lot quicker for the maps to load from the initial.
Because the thing with this sat map has got these HD maps, and that's what takes the time to
the
load
high
them.
definition maps.
That's brilliant. So that's your top tips for this month. So thank you very much for those, Andy. The big debate on this month's podcast is button or touchscreen. We're kind of going over a little bit of what we're just talking about with the Oregon GPS and the Montana and the 64S. So what are our personal preferences for buttons and a touchscreen? Oh, we can also mention actually the sat map has got both on, has that sat map Active 20, so we can do that. So what would you prefer, Tom, and which instances? Like some people may have two GPS units, I suppose, but actually most people just have one.
Yeah, I think some people do. My preference nowadays is what you were talking about before. More and more people now are using smartphones. It's how intuitive now touchscreens are for most people. Just as simple as typing a grid reference in is so simple on a touchscreen unit by using the numbers on the screen, whereas doing it on a 64S or even an older E-Trex is quite a long-winded process. So when I'm out and about on the hill now, I am moving more and more towards that touchscreen.
Unless you're going in the hills in winter, then
in the middle of winter in Scotland when you've got your big thick gloves on. Again, it kind of flips around on its head, doesn't it?
And the Oregon GPS unit has a glove setting on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean on the Oregon 700 there is a setting within the main settings where you can say glove friendly. What we found with that setting, it's really designed more for the cyclist glove, those sort of thin, sort of cyclist style gloves. When you're using the Oregon 700, if you do change it to that glove-friendly setting, you're still not going to get a great response from a big, thick, padded glove, and you are still going to be really taking your gloves off and using it with your gloves off, to be honest. It does help, though, as a cyclist point of view, if you put it on the glove-friendly setting, and you've got those thinner cycling style
And a lot of gloves now, we just did some of the newsletter last week where we were getting some people's reviews on these gloves that do have like little pads on them, don't they? So you can use touchscreen, both phones and GPSs with them. So something have you played much with them, or have you, Tom?
Yeah, I've had a couple of pairs for both cycling and walking.
And they work well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Have you had it, Andy, or not? No.
I've had some sealskin gloves before that had the tips in, and they worked fairly well. But the gloves at the time when I bought them were still fairly thick, and gloves are getting thinner.
Right.
But the technology is getting better. That they're just as warm but thinner, and of course you are getting these smart tips on them now.
So what do you prefer then, touchscreen or button?
Definitely touchscreen, more just for the entering the data and getting the screens quickly. It's so much quicker, on a touchscreen unit. But I can still see the benefits of that person who's maybe using it more in that sort of environment in the winter, the mountain climber with the gloves they're going to wear are going to be those big, thick mountain gloves.
I think I have to agree with you guys, because touchscreens. We're so used to smartphones now with touchscreens. I don't think we use anything. Going back to buttons, you have to. I don't know. It's like stepping back a little bit in time. Positive thing I like with the buttons is if you don't use a GPS very often, the buttons tell you what you're going to do with them. So actually, it's quite intuitive, isn't it? So actually, if you don't use a GPS, you lift it out of the drawer every 6 or 8 weeks. Actually, it has an in-out button, it has a menu button. It tells you what it's going to do. So it's quite intuitive. But I'm like you guys. I go back onto that touchscreen unit because actually it's so much easier. Creating waypoints, just tapping on the screen, those gestures that we use with a smartphone, touch, drag, and this kind of thing. So I think we're all kind of agreed, which is not really much of a debate, really, is it? That we think the touchscreen unit is the way forward. I think that's the way we can see that in our sales. The majority of units that we sell now are touchscreen GPS units. So what training courses do we have coming up over the next month? We are coming to the end of our season of training courses, so we've still got our webinars that are taking place. So webinars, these live seminars you can book onto, and they are unit specific as well. So on October the 17th, we have a Getting Started with Your Garmin GPS unit. That's for Oregon 700 series and eTrex Touch series. On October the 24th, the following week, again we have a webinar for Garmin GPS units, and that's for eTrex 20X, 30S and GPS Map 64S. The following day, this is October the 25th, Annie's doing a course on getting to know a Basecamp for Windows. So that'd be a long night for Annie. He spends 2 hours in the computer teaching Abby how to do those. And then the following week, November the 1st, we've got Getting Started with Garmin GPS again, and that's Oregon 600, Montana series and GPS Map 64S. And then November the 7th, we've got another one which is on Basecamp for Mac. So those are our webinars that we have coming up. Again, if you bought your unit from us, you get those webinars for free. Alternatively, you can just sign up on our website, which is gpstraining.co.uk, and just click on courses at the top, and then you can see the webinars there, so you can sign up there. I say GPS training courses, we're just coming to the end of it. We've got one this weekend in the New Forest, so actually by the time you've downloaded the podcast, that would have happened. And then we've got one in Cotswolds at the end of the month, which is fully booked, sadly. But if you have a look on our website, you see all the courses for next year, and they're booking up nicely. So if you do want to come on one of our courses, please do. So that's the end of our second podcast. I very much hope you've enjoyed it. And again, as I said at the beginning, if there's anything you would like us to cover, or if you have any thoughts or feedback on the podcast, please do get in touch. Again, our contact details are on our website. Just drop us an email, and we'll hopefully incorporate that into future podcasts. Please do tell your friends about our podcast. And again, about GPS training. Tell them to have a look at our website, which is gpstraining.co.uk. As I said at the beginning, there's links on every page to the podcast. So again, that's the easiest way to get people to there. And again, we have our Friday newsletter. So don't forget, you can sign up to our Friday newsletter. That's on our website. And of course, at 11:45, and it's top tech and team news, which keeps everybody up to date with what we're doing. So next month's podcast, what are we going to look at? Again, these are just provisional ideas. Again, if you've got anything, just drop us an email. We're going to look at 125,000 mapping, what options are available. We're going to look at reviewing the eTrex Touch 2535. We're going to look at topo-active mapping. We've discussed that a little bit when we talk about the Phoenix 5X watch. We're going to look at exactly what topo-active mapping is. And then we're also going to look at the online resource, which is something we have unique GPS training. But if you want anything else covered, just drop us an email and we incorporate that into the next podcast. So don't forget, give us a call, and thanks again for listening. So to finish off, fond farewell from myself and also from Andy.
Thank you.
And also thanks, Tom, for heading up to Northumberland for today's podcast, and you're more than welcome to come back again sometime.
Thank you very much.
So thanks very much, everybody, and thank you for listening to podcasts, and yeah, please do get in touch. Thank you. "32 minutes, shorter, man.
Shorter.
By the time I put it in,
Have we had
that'll
any
be
questions?
better. No questions, there's no one watching us, that's why. 6 views.
Okay.
We're fine. So, thank you for those who've watched it, and again, you'll be you can watch it. It records it, doesn't it? So as I stop it now, it will save it, and then people will watch the hard content. So thanks for people on Facebook. We're hoping to do a little bit more on live Facebook in the future. Grasp the technology. Thanks you guys. Have you enjoyed that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
So it's a case of editing it now. So what we do now is edit it, and then we upload it to our server, and then over the next 3 or 4 days, it syncs with all the podcast channels. So it appears as in people's feeds for the podcast. So if you've dropped in. I hope you've enjoyed seeing how we record it. And yeah, get in touch with us. And it's just about just half an hour before our newsletter goes out, so we'll scurry back to the office and prepare for the emails and questions that generates. So thanks for the Facebook watchers, and goodbye from me and goodbye from these guys.
Bye.
Thank you.